Now, something that I think we can all agree on that has been needed for quite a long time now is some stability in the market. So to start off, as you'll see here, I do have Bulbasaur from Stellar Crown in front of me, and to partner Bulbasaur, we have Squirtle, which of course is the other Kanto starter that is included as an illustration rare in that Stellar Crown set. Now, of course, these are 2 of your 3 starters from the first generation, therefore very, very desirable Pokemon, huge level of nostalgia in play here, therefore ones that if any card was going to drop off, you wouldn't really expect these to do so. But as we can see from the graphs, they have done so. Not only the Squirtle, but also the Bulbasaur here. As you can see, the Bulbasaur shot up very quickly over the last 6 months, just like a lot of Pokemon cards have done, and the Squirtle performed the same way. But sort of that end of January period, as you can see, beginning of February, Squirtle reached a high of 80, whereas the Bulbasaur here reached a high of 70 in that same sort of period. But from that end of January, sort of beginning of February period, it's only been really downhill from there. As you can see, with the Bulbasaur here, we reached 70 and has slowly trailed off all the way down to even reached under $60 at one point. And if we look at the Squirtle, it's the same sort of story. This one's actually dropped off a little bit more than the Bulbasaur. We look at it, reached a high of 80 on February 1st to February the 3rd, and has since then tailed off quite a bit and gone all the way down to around $60, which as you see right now, it says 67, but as you can see, it did reach a low of 63 only a couple days ago. And it's interesting, right? Because then you ask questions as to why is it dropping off in price? Because let's not forget, these are 2 cards from Stellar Crown. And Stellar Crown is not part of those 5 sets that we know are getting reprinted very soon. Those of course are Obsidian Fames, Paldean Evolved, Paldean Fates, Surging Sparks, and Twilight Masquerade. Therefore, it really is surprising as to why these cards are dropping off, as there's no reprints coming and they're both very, very desirable Pokemon. Just to continue on that theme of sets that are not currently going to be reprinted, we have Temporal Forces here. They're one of my favorite cards from this set, the Metagross here. Fantastic, fantastic illustration. I really, really do love this card. Now, I think it's underpriced at $26. I really, really do. I'm a big believer in this card, and I think one day it's a $50 to $100 card. Give it time. Temporal Forces we kind of find in a lot of different tins and a lot of different products. It's quite a heavily printed set. Therefore, for now, it's got a relatively low price, but give it time, I think it'll rise. Anyway, as we can see here, it rose as a lot of cards did over the last 6 months, as we just touched on, and it did reach a high of almost $40. Again, this one sort of peaked a little bit later than that Bulbasaur and Squirtle card, which as we said was sort of the beginning of February time. This one was more towards the end of February. As you see, 22nd to the 24th. This one reached just shy of $40. But again, once it reached that peak, it's been downhill from there. As we can see, it's tailed off and tailed off and tailed off, where it reached $26.40 as a low a few days ago. And it sits around that same sort of price now at around $26. So a high of 40, dropping all the way off to around mid-20s. Again, a card you wouldn't expect to do so. Temporal Forces is a decent set. Not the best from Scarlet Violet, but it's a decent set. And it has some really decent cards in there, like this Metagross here. Metagross is a desirable Pokemon. Generation 3, again, nostalgia in play here. Not a Pokemon you'd really expect to drop off. So it's surprising to see, again, that it reached a decent high of around $40, but has since dropped off then. Just a huge thank you and welcome to all of the new subscribers on the channel. It's a massive pleasure to see so many of you joining day by day. And if you're new here and you're not yet subscribed, hi, my name's Will and I love to talk about the Pokemon TCG, and I do put out a new video every other day. So if this sounds like something you would enjoy, please feel free to click that subscribe button, as I really would love to have you here. So I just want to touch on an example of a card at the lower end of the scale, because we looked at Bulbasaur and we looked at Squirtle, and it would make sense if you thought, you know what, $70, $80 for a card, it makes sense that they've dropped off a little bit. Or Metagross, the same sort of thing, right? $40 odd for a card, it's risen quite a lot. Maybe it makes sense that it dropped off a little bit. So let's look at a card that never even reached $20, a much cheaper card, a much cheaper example, but it still follows the same pattern. As we can see with the Exeggcute here from Surging Sparks, currently sits at $8, but that's not after the fact that it did hit a peak of $16. As we can see, just like the other cards we touched on in the video, as I already touched on before in this video, we said that a lot of cards over the last 6 months have risen astronomically, and Exeggcute was one of them cards. As we see, was only around $4 and shot up to $16 in the middle of February. But thankfully, as we said, it's a positive that these are happening. We want drops, we want stability, we want cards to be affordable, and therefore more people have access to these cards. So the fact that it's reached $16 but has since dropped off all the way down to $9, well, as it says here, $8.76, is a fantastic positive for Pokemon, for everyone that's involved, for the community, right? Now, this is obviously most likely due to the fact that Surging Sparks is getting a reprint. We know it's one of them 5 sets being reprinted, and that's a fantastic plus, right? As we know, Surging Sparks has been nigh on impossible to obtain at MSRP ever since around release day. As we know, it set records for prices of booster boxes on sort of release day. That's when the market really started to move and really started to boom. Therefore, we've desperately needed a reprint for Surging Sparks. Now, perhaps you're thinking, well, this is just illustration rares, right? This is just them finding their price, the correct price they should be at. Because as we know, illustration rare cards have really taken off over the last few months. But now I'm going to go into a few SIR cards just to show you that this is not just illustration rare cards. We're seeing a correction or a crash or a drop or stability, whatever you want to label it, not just with illustration rare cards, but also with SIR cards. Now, one of the greatest cards from the entire era, this Mew EX SIR from Paldean Fates that we all know and love. Now, of course, as we know, it's been rising and rising and rising and rising over the last few months. As we can see here, look at the shape of that graph. Back in December, only 267, risen all the way up to the end of January, beginning of February, where it reached a peak of $421 US. That's in about the space of a month, $150 rise, which is absolutely crazy, right? But as we can see, once it reaches peak in a similar way to Bulbasaur and Squirtle, February 1st, February 3rd, when it reaches peak, it's only been downhill from there. As we can see, it's dropped off, it's dropped off, it's dropped off, and it sits at around $340 odd now. So not too far off a $100 drop. In the space of around a month to 2 months, $100 drop off for a card that costs just over $400 is huge, right? That's astronomical. Now, again, you could say that the reason for the drop off, just like with the Exeggcute, for example, is the fact that it's seeing a reprint, right? As we know, Paldean Fates is one of those 5 sets being reprinted, along with Obsidian Flames, Paldea Evolve, Surging Sparks, and Twilight Masquerade. Therefore, yes, you could say that's part of the reason, but then when you see examples of other really good cards, such as that Bulbasaur and Squirtle dropping off, and we're going to look at a couple more as well, it makes you think, is it just the fact that it's getting a reprint the reason it's dropping off? Or is there more at play here? So whilst we're on that subject of whether or not a reprint is the reason to cause these cards to drop, I present you the Charizard from 151. As we know, 151 is not one of the sets being reprinted, and it's up in the air whether or not it will get another reprint, as it's quite old now. It's coming up to 2 years old. So therefore, the Charizard EX being the chase card from that set, would you expect it to drop off? I would say no, you wouldn't, but it has done. As we can see here, it did reach a peak of nearly $300. It did reach $292, but in the space of only about a couple weeks, it's dropped off around $50 all the way down to around the $240 odd mark. That's an astronomical drop off in such a short period of time for the chase card, a Charizard card as well, from a set as strong as 151, a set that's around 2 years old and therefore not too sure if we will see a reprint again. It really does make you think, why is this card falling off? Why is it declining? Now, I want your guys' help. I want you guys to have an open conversation with me in the comments about this video and about why some cards are dropping, because although I make content on the Pokemon TCG, it does not mean I have some kind of superior knowledge and know every detail as to why things happen within the TCG. Now, I do think that reprints are having an effect and are the reason as to why some cards are dropping off, but I can't say that's the reason for all the cards to drop off. For example, why is that Charizard EX dropping off? Why is that Squirtle and Bulbasaur dropping off? And that's what I'm saying. I do think that there's more in play here. I do think there's something going on behind, not behind the scenes, but there's something more than just a reprint which is causing these cards to drop. I do ultimately think it is a huge positive for the TCG that some cards that were getting really expensive are stabilizing and even more so dropping off in price, which of course opens the door for a lot of your casual collectors and hobbyists to purchase some of the cards that before they couldn't justify paying for. But with that being said, guys, as I said, please let me know in the comments what your guys' opinions are. Why do you think these cards are dropping? What do you think are the reasons as to why we're seeing some stability or even some sort of mild crashes, so to speak, in the market with some of your much stronger cards. Guys, I really do hope you have enjoyed the video, and if you are still watching, I really do greatly appreciate your support, and if you have enjoyed the video, please don't hesitate to leave a like. And of course, if you want to watch a couple other videos of mine, guys, you can watch a video right here where I showcase 10 of your best cards under $20 right now in the TCG, or this video right here where I talk about the reprints and the potential effect they will have on the market. Apart from that, guys, I've been Will, this is PokeCharla, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.